Welcome to the Hired Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell, Community Engagement Lead at Pathify. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology. The Hired Geek Podcast is a proud member of the Enrollify Podcast Network, a robust collection of shows designed to help higher education professionals like you grow every day. Explore all of our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another wonderful episode of the Hired Geek Podcast. I'm very excited to have someone on today that we've kind of been dancing around in similar circles. We're going to talk about, I think, those spaces and places that we've been kind of near and around each other, but we've not really had an opportunity for a meaningful, kind of substantive conversation about kind of the space and what she's working on and everything. So just really excited for this opportunity and to talk kind of primarily or kind of spend at least a decent bit of our time together about one of kind of those spaces and places that has brought us together and will bring us together in the near future, EdTechWeek. So before we get to any of that, we will start out as we always do. I have our guest, Kaitlin, if you want to introduce yourself to everybody, kind of brief overview of your professional background. Then we'll talk more about what you're working on currently and about EdTechWeek and a bunch of other cool stuff. So take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin. So happy to be on the show. Hi, everyone. Kaitlin Dumont. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, I go by the Mrs. Maisel of EdTech, which, oh boy, for something I put up as a joke 6 months ago, it has resonated. And Dustin, the short kind of funny story there is a colleague just remarked that I take an observational humor approach to our industry and have a penchant for vintage dresses. So I put it up, I ran with it. So yeah, a lot of what I do is how do we look holistically at education, broadly speaking, and it can be so serious these days with all of the headwinds facing the industry. But how do we do it with humor and humility and fun to solve some of these wicked challenges? But the nickel summary from a professional background, always in the ed sector, got my start in experience-based education in the K-12 district for a company, EF Education First, worked primarily with high schools and middle schools in the state of Mississippi. But from there, moved into post-secondary and deep post-secondary with executive education at Harvard Business School. And the joke there is, my husband said at the time, 1 to 2 week programs for CEOs. You do 1 to 2 week programs for high school students. How different can it be? The answer is not a lot. We still have ice cream break and group photo on the library steps, but spent a number of years both on the marketing and sales team as well as the program operations team there. Moved up to Tuck at Dartmouth in more of a strategic role, looking at open enrollment programs, custom engagements. Did a lot of work in the online space. That's where I got my start in online education with our partnerships at Tuck at Dartmouth with Emeritus, and built out our first specialization on Coursera's platform with Professor Sydney Finkelstein on strategic leadership, did some work with Exec Online and their applied experience platform, and then made the jump, as many do, from inside of a university to working with universities. So moved to the team at Kaplan. At first was working on the university partnerships team with our go-to-market strategy that was really astride all of Kaplan's offerings. Most people know Kaplan as the test preparation company. There's actually like 150 some odd product offerings, including growing innovation offerings. So my group really sat down with presidents and provosts and senior university leaders to understand their challenges and how we can be a multi-purpose strategic partner. Did that for about a year, then was given the very humbling opportunity to create my own job and write my own job description, and spent the last 18 months of my Kaplan tenure as the head of workforce learning innovation. And for all the fancy buzzwords, what that means is that Kaplan had a really important role to play between our university partners and our employer partners. So how do we think about all of the connections in that space and in that ecosystem in between hire, train, deploy programs, education as a benefit, talent bridging programs in the community college space with guaranteed employment with our employer partners? So really interesting and meaningful work that many folks in our industry and our space are working on, but decided I wanted to do something interesting and different. And now I'm with Huron in consulting. So working in our strategy and operations group, astride many interesting opportunities, mostly again, back on the legacy higher ed space, working with universities. So as a senior leader at Huron likes to joke, we do everything but teach. And Huron has 1,500 consultants on 500 different campuses annually. So it is quite the operation when it comes to all of the different and interesting ways we consult with our university partners. So red thread there from Kaplan to Huron, really how does an objective strategic partner sit with the university cabinet and go, okay, higher ed, what are we going to do about it? So, and to your point around EdTechWeek and some other spaces we've been involved in, there's a really similar opportunity in bringing individuals together from all facets of the ecosystem to solve some of these really wicked and complex problems facing the industry.
Yeah, I appreciate you kind of giving that overview of all the things that you've done and all that, because I think it's helpful, I think, to honestly just, always kind of highlight the wide kind of variety of ways that folks can kind of engage and interact with the space, and that like part of it being like you're creating your own jobs and all that, like things just are changing a lot, and that there's a lot of different needs and demands of this moment. And I think also give a kudos or tip of the hat of like your kind of moniker, because it's like I've had a moniker and all that, with like personal branding or whatever, you gotta have a gimmick, just be memorable in that way. But and I think, I guess, yeah, so kind of with the core kind of part of our conversation here, and that value of like trying to bring people together for kind of conversations that matter, whether it's, like getting a cabinet together and really being focused on creating and implementing, kind of delivering a strategy that kind of meets this moment and kind of the headwinds that we're facing with kind of courage and willpower and optimism and all of that. Because I think, like you said, this is sort of a dour time for higher ed. I think this is maybe some of the darkest depths that we've had in decades or centuries, really, of just sort of, a lot of financial issues and public scrutiny and skepticism, and just no shortage of kind of competition of whether just kind of, different offerings for post-secondary learning or, I mean, it's like kind of the list goes on, but I think, like we'll give kind of a quick mention here, the idea of certainly events like EdTechWeek or any number of conferences or, these sort of like, flash in the pan, really amazing kind of magical moments in time that bring people together from all sorts of different backgrounds. But then also I've found a lot of value in kind of complementing those with more persistent and consistent communities that bring people together to kind of share news, share projects that they're working on, put out asks and everything. So I know one of the spaces that we've shared and kind of seen each other and kind of interacted on is the Future of Higher Ed Slack community, and sort of how it's originated and sort of continuing to kind of mature and blossom from there. But I don't know if you want to kind of speak to sort of how you got involved, because I do think that has sort of segues and connections to kind of the rest of our conversation. But just want to give a tip of the hat to them, because I've been a part of that group for a long time and I've really appreciated it. So I wanted to kind of get your side of the story, I guess, of how you got into that group.
Yeah, for me personally, it's a very direct connection with EdTechWeek. My first involvement with Star Ed, the group that is responsible for EdTechWeek, was about 2 years ago, and got involved with the host committee for EdTechWeek 2023. Did a number of sessions, incredible experience. We will talk more, I'm sure, about the actual EdTechWeek event. But there a happenstance conversation was speaking with a senior leader at a small LMS platform, community-based platform in EdTech. And he goes, "Oh, have you heard of this Future of Higher Ed Slack group?" And I go, "I have not. Tell me more." And it was really that conversation where I got introduced to Ray and Jake, the two founders of the group, got on the Slack channel, and it has been such a blessing. It's 3,000 or over 3,000 now, innovators, higher ed leaders, corporate L&D leaders, consultants, all facets of the ecosystem together on a super organic, authentic Slack group. And I've sensed my toxic trait is I join things and then I take them over. So now I co-lead the Boston chapter with David Shacklett, who heads up the skills lab at the Project on Workforce at Harvard. And it's been such a joy to have these, larger events, whether it's EdTechWeek or ASU GSV or South by Southwest EDU, and these smaller, more intimate gatherings of local leaders just to keep that conversation going. So it's hybrid learning in its finest, those large in-person synchronous events and kind of the asynchronous smaller events that cascade off of that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm most excited about, is like that that Future of Higher Ed group is building out local communities and really strongly encouraging and trying to, tap people on the shoulder to kind of put stuff on, because I think it's happened ad hoc over the years, and really trying to kind of formalize that. And yeah, because I think it's like we shouldn't have to wait for that once a year big national or global event. It's like you might get kind of overwhelmed by that, and the idea that you can have those folks where it's like, oh, can we grab coffee, grab lunch, grab a drink? Like I want to kind of talk through something, and then maybe be just in a really stronger place to head into those bigger events or know people, ahead of time going in, those sort of things. So yeah, I think it's a beautiful group. Definitely encourage folks to look it up. But I think, yeah, at the core of it, that idea of, like you're kind of listing off, just a wide variety of different people coming together, having conversations from their different perspectives. Because I think none of us kind of exist in a vacuum, especially in education, whether, certainly if it's K through 12 and how they sort of prepare learners to pursue whatever kind of post-secondary goals they might have and everything. EdTechWeek is one of the larger, I think, like East Coast events. Like I went for the first time last year and had a great time, and looking forward to heading back again this year. But yeah, if you want to kind of talk more in depth about your relationship with EdTechWeek, I guess maybe how you found out about it and how you've kind of gotten involved more recently.
Yeah, so I found out about Start Ed. This is going back 2 years. I had reconnected with a friend who she was at Exec Online when I was at Dartmouth. They worked together to build some online program experiences, and then reconnected another year later. We're just catching up, and she mentioned Start Ed. And she's like, oh, yeah, I'm a mentor to all of these EdTech founders. You should be a mentor too. And my brain went, I know nothing about startups or raising capital or any of these pieces. Like, what value do I have to offer? But what Start Ed has done, and Ash and Kelly and EdTechWeek by extension, is really bring together practitioners and senior leaders and the potentially customers and buyers of these EdTech products, not just founders and investors. So it's more than just what can I sell to you, but no, what really is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the root cause, and how can I be of value as we all collectively to work some of these problems? So got involved as a mentor about 2 years ago, joined the host committee in 2023, had a number of sessions, and then I'm back on the host committee for 2024. But just love the intimate scale and the diversity of perspectives that are in those sessions.
Yeah, because it is, like you said, it is deliberately built to kind of welcome and encourage like everybody to come together. And then those are the events that I'm finding as somebody who's kind of, I've worked remotely full time for several years, worked in a couple of OPMs and edtech companies and all that, but I've had this podcast for a long time that is like a big part of kind of my identity and, how I connect with people, and not feeling like I have like a strong professional home, because like there's certain, long running events and bigger conferences that are like, okay, well, like we're like, because like the Online Learning Consortium, it's like, yeah, it's caters mostly to like instructional designers and people in that space. And it's like, well, that's not really me. I could be there and probably, make some good connections. So it's like, it's been hard to find spaces where I feel like it is kind of deliberately designed to be kind of cross-functional and very broad. And that I feel like, I guess, yeah, just like welcoming and sort of relevant and kind of fruitful spaces for someone like myself. And EdTechWeek has definitely been one of those. So I guess just with, your role, obviously you maybe have a little bit more behind the scenes. I know just recently, like the kind of first batch of the agenda, is kind of released and everything. With all of that, are there particular things that you are looking forward to this year, like with this event? Because I think with it being, I think for me, like one of the kind of big kind of, tentpole events that I'm looking forward to in the fall, I'm sure there's like, no shortage of things going on and all that you look forward to. But I guess just for you personally, what are you looking forward to for this year's event?
Well, I'm looking forward to my panel, shameless plug, everything you wanted to know about going to market with universities, but we're afraid to ask, parentheses, the Please Stop Cold Emailing Provost song. Okay, maybe that last part's not actually there, but, I've spent so much of my professional career being either sold to or selling into universities, and it's such an interesting industry. So I brought together 4 senior university leaders from my network, and we're just going to have a conversation about what works, what doesn't, how do you articulate value in an authentic way. So very much looking forward to that conversation. But broadly speaking, we talked a little bit about the intimate scale compared to some of the larger events out there. It really is these dynamic conversations in the sessions. I feel like for some other conferences, and I've been a speaker at these conferences, you're either on a panel or doing a fireside Q&A in front of an audience of hundreds. And then there's those mics and people sometimes get up brave enough to ask a question at the end. But I did one session last year with a faculty member who teaches on strategic communications, Paul Argenti, at the Tufts School. We were in a conference room at the Google offices in Chelsea. There's maybe 25 people around the table. And we just had a conversation about the importance of communication and strategy and all of your constituents, whether it's parents or university leaders or investors or the media. And there was such good conversations and such different perspectives because we had people from all facets of the ecosystem in that conversation that I think I learned just as much as I spoke. So it's really those smaller conversations, whether it's either in a session or outside of a session, that I'm looking the most forward to.
Yeah, and I think that's because you've used that phrase twice now, like when I kind of bold and circle and underline it, I think that's like such a good North Star for events like this is like kind of intimate scale. Because it's like, there's obviously going to be that temptation for any event just being like, let's get as many people as we can just cram in there. And it's, going to be really crowded and maybe like overwhelming for people, especially if it's like your first time or you're coming alone or whatever. Like you're just trying to kind of find, kind of carve out some kind of niche space, and it might be, you just kind of happen upon it. Like it's not super easy to kind of, identify. But I think that idea of trying to find those opportunities, for like, making space for people to connect and talk and have either one-on-one or like small group conversations, I think is definitely like the better way to go. Because honestly, like I've seen also where certain events, most people who are there are speaking on some panel or whatever. So then it's like, there's like literally too much going on and they're just sort of like saturating the calendar with events. And then it's like you see people speaking to a huge room with like 20 people in it. And it's just like, okay, you went way too far on the scale side and you were trying to like bring people in, like be like, hey, everybody speak. Anybody, like we'll just get everybody on a panel and then like maybe they get their ticket covered or whatever. But then it's like, well, then there's nobody to be in the audience because everybody's just a speaker. Like, it's just this like weird paradox of like, everybody's just trying to like hustle to get people in their session because it's just like, well, no, everybody else is also speaking at the same time that you're speaking. So nobody actually can come to your session. Like, it's like, try to find a better balance there and keep that like intimacy in the sense of like the kind of durable connections that are going to be forged, that can really only be made in those sort of one-on-one, when there's chance encounters or, kind of more intentional things or small group, and like the ability to really kind of like talk through problems, be like, hey, you really were able to help me out or see things in a different way or whatever that might be. But I guess that, it's just, me getting on my soapbox a little bit of just sort of like being at, my share of events over this like past year or two. And I guess I don't know, like just any perspectives on that in particular. I guess that sort of value of trying to build that intimate scale. And I guess and maybe your experience of seeing like, seeing that working well at a space like EdTechWeek and times when it hasn't worked so well.
Hey there, it's Mallory, Chief Strategist of Enrollify. Higher ed is facing a leadership crisis. The demands on today's college and university leaders are skyrocketing, and talent is leaving the industry at an unprecedented rate. New leaders like you are emerging, but no one is getting the proper training to be successful. Well, Enrollify is here to change that. Our new course, Lessons in Leadership, taught by Dr. Carrie Phillips, will prepare you to be a confident, empathetic, and effective leader. From systems thinking to adaptive leadership, building culture to handling difficult decisions, this comprehensive online course is perfect for new and aspiring leaders. Don't wait. The course starts September 9th, and for a lucky group of 26 students, we have the option to add interactive sessions with Dr. Phillips for personalized guidance. Visit Enrollify.org to learn more.
Yeah, and I think I even saw, you're going to have to fact check me on this, that they're limiting it to 1,000 participants this year, which I think is great. But at the same time, it's not one of these limited gathering of the senior elite and us, proletariat down here can't be involved. They, last year, I don't know if they're doing it again this year, had a job seeker track and really encourages everyone, like maybe you're just even interested in ed tech and don't know what it means to show up and have those conversations. So I would say intimate scale, really interesting cross-section of individuals. And the third piece that we haven't touched on, and at least this has been my perspective, is the community feel and the genuine curiosity of every person you meet. So it's not like, what have you done for me lately? But I had conversations with folks last year where it's just I want to learn more. I want to know how you're approaching this and what are your challenges. And, I've met a couple of who I will call really good friends now in the space who we still keep in touch and we catch up on Zoom every once in a while. And we're so excited to see each other again this year. So that community feel really has resonated a lot, at least for me with this particular event.
Yeah, because I think that's like, I think there's, room at the table for a lot of different events of different size and scopes and kind of focuses and everything. And that like, I'm thinking of, something like EDUCAUSE. I've gone once and hoping to go again, but I think part of it is like, with it being like heavily like IT focused, and I know they have like a huge show floor, like that is like, I think like the main kind of priority typically is people want to go walk the show floor and go shop. And it's kind of like, well, if you're not like, exhibiting, it's either like you're, just going to have a very different experience. It's not sort of like main focus, or like you might end up being like, well, actually, yeah, I'm on the show floor, but then that's it. Like, that's all I did. I didn't go to any sessions. I maybe didn't go to like, so it's the idea of like, okay, well, that's all well and good. Like, good on EDUCAUSE. Like, let's have that as part of sort of the tapestry of things going on. But then it's like, we don't want other organizations or communities to feel like it's like, oh, we just have to like do our own version of that. Like, we can kind of do our own thing. And I think, just excited for, it's 10 years of EdTechWeek and seeing kind of the opportunity, I guess, to kind of honor what was and what they've been able to accomplish. And definitely, it's always a good opportunity to kind of look ahead to the future and keep building and keep kind of, building that intimate scale. I do like that turn of phrase, but and we'll put some information and links about this in the show notes. But like I said, I'm excited to be going to EdTechWeek this year. And Kaitlin, like you said, you'll be there, and a lot of other cool folks. So if you also want to join us, there'll be a link to register in the description for the episode, and an exclusive promo code Geek 2024. So Geek 2024 will get you a discount on your ticket. And so just really excited to have this opportunity to kind of help signal boost this event that I'll be going to. I try to do this for basically like every event that I go to. Just trying to be like, I'm going to be there. Like, please join me. And just like, because I know that's also part of it. So it's just like a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of stuff going on, and just trying to uplift the things that are sort of catching my attention. And so hopefully folks will check out EdTechWeek and hopefully hang out with us in New York. But as we wrap up, I was curious just to obviously, talk about, professional communities, EdTechWeek in particular, and even stuff like future higher ed, and just help folks kind of get to know you. But given what you're doing at Huron, I feel like you have a unique perspective on what I try to kind of glean from people that I've been talking to over this past year about just sort of digital transformation writ large. That is, I feel like, kind of the one constant through line of what all the kind of different kind of issues that leaders are grappling with in terms of just like kind of the day-to-day functioning and kind of the student experience that they're building at their institution. So from your perspective, how are you seeing digital transformation playing out at institutions? Like, is there a common through line, or is there a lot of just different things that people, the leaders that you're working with are grappling with? Take the question as you will. Curious to get your perspective.
Wow, what a broad question. I have lots of thoughts, but in the interest of time and without giving an unsatisfactory, well, it depends. I think one common through line I've noticed is the difference between the technological element and the uniquely human element. And this isn't unique to higher ed, right? It's how do you create that adoption? How do you implement the tool? It's the old debate between the educational technologist and the learning designer. Where does this sit? Or we even think about broader digital transformation within a university, implementing a new ERP or CRM, or trying to get some other large-scale digital initiative off the ground. At Huron, we actually divide that into two separate practices. There's the team who works on the technical side and works with the CIO's office for what are all of the data governance, hygiene, maintenance pieces that need to be taken into consideration. And then another team who works on the uniquely human piece, really taking a human-centered design perspective, thinking about who are the stakeholders who will be using this technology, whether it's students or faculty or staff or parents or anyone else, and what do they need for this technology to be effective? And, again, bringing this back more to an ed tech context, we hear a lot about AI and all the cool things that AI can do for you. But if you are just shoehorning AI into your strategy because it's the buzzword du jour, you're not actually going to create meaningful change. I think the most powerful thing happens in digital transformation when there's that symbiotic relationship between really interesting, powerful, leading edge tech and how it's used to solve distinctly human problems. And when you have the marriage of those two pieces, that's where you find some really cool things.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear, I guess, just like the putting enough sort of like importance on the technical and the human pieces to like they're literally different teams at our organization is like that's a good idea. And because I think some might be like, oh, we only do one or the other, or yeah, we have the same person that just does everything or whatever. Like, because I think it's the idea that at the end of the day, I think most people would objectively agree that you would need to like make sure that you're working on both of those areas sort of in tandem of just being like, okay, well, we evaluated and chose a tool, but then we also do have to kind of figure out the kind of cultural change management piece to make sure that folks, understand why we're making this change and are able to feel confident and empowered to, utilize that tool to its full potential. And yeah, like I always just like asking that question in a deliberately broad way, because some people do get like super tactical of like, yeah, we're seeing a lot of people like, trying to, do something with their SIS of like either kind of, reconfigure it or put a better front layer in front of it or make a huge migration or transition. And they'll just kind of hone in on that thing. We're just like, yeah, I've just had a lot of conversation about that lately. That's what I'm hearing and seeing a lot of. And like you're kind of, I guess, giving kind of honorable mention to that. But like really, I think that is sort of the paradigm that is kind of shifting is the digital kind of tech stack of the institution is changing. Like that is going to be happening, and institutions are at any given point on that spectrum and on that journey. But that like IT and like CIOs I think have a much more prominent role and kind of see the table, and that I think happening in tandem and in concert with that is just the acknowledgement of like even just on a sort of like kind of ethical levels, like we just need to take better care of our people. And part of that is just trying to help shepherd them through big changes that are happening. So like that certainly can be like tech related, but just generally like we're, a lot of institutions are like having this revolving door of presidents, or, we're dealing with a lot of the public scrutiny, or like we're having protests on our campus. It's like, okay, how are we making sure to take care of our people? And part of that is making sure that they feel like they, again, are kind of empowered and confident about using the tools that we're choosing and implementing and providing to them, so that like we're not being kind of frivolous or careless with our limited resources, like what we're choosing to invest in. So, and I guess as we wrap up and try to kind of bring us in for a landing, I just felt like I wanted to ask you, because I guess it's just you're somebody that I feel you make yourself very available. I guess like on LinkedIn, you're very active, joining kind of discourses and conversations and everything. So, giving you kind of the platform here, have any like predictions or hot takes to share during this turbulent time? Because I think it is like it's a very dour time, and I think maybe I wanted to end it. Like I was just getting that vibe, the Miss Maisel of EdTech here, like ending it on a more like kind of fun hot take prediction, all that. But like, we're all just trying to kind of like read the tea leaves and discern like, what should I be doing, not be doing, like what's to come. And, it's just a very ambiguous time, very turbulent time. Just predictions, hot takes, your perspective to kind of wrap everything up, to share with folks and kind of put a nice fun bow, I guess, on our conversation here.
So I got two. Can I break the rules and give two?
Absolutely.
So, and this is actually stemming out of the conversation we were just having around digital transformation, the uniquely human element. I wrote about 2 years ago around value chain analysis. So I have my MBA. I went to business school. I lived and grew up in business schools. And it's this idea of how do companies evaluate every capability along the chain to create value for their end user, in this case, the student or the learner, and which are better suited to invest in-house that's unique to them, that's going to be core to their value proposition, and which pieces are better suited for strategic partnership. Now, every other private company on the planet goes, okay, yeah, I'm iPhone and I'm going to work with these foundries in China to create this piece of my product, or thinking about where are those partnership opportunities. And higher ed has been distinctly vertically integrated. Maybe we work with an LMS platform, maybe we outsource, our janitorial staff or food services, but really thinking about those capabilities that are core to the student experience and thinking about it specifically from digital transformation, and it's the human piece. Schools aren't staffed the way they need to be. They're losing talent to private industry. I'm one of them. I jumped from the university to private industry. So what does that relationship look like from perhaps a managed or shared services point of view, where I go, okay, I'm implementing a new CRM for my recruitment and enrollment management. Do I need to hire someone full-time to manage that? Or is that better suited for a partner who feels like an extension of my organization, who uniquely understands not this kind of like outsourcing as a bad word piece, but someone who it just makes more sense because maybe they're working with a portfolio of institutions, and I am getting increased value not only for my people, for my staff, but for my students and my learners by actually sourcing this piece strategically out to a partner. So I think we'll see much more of that. And hot on the news from yesterday, 2U's bankruptcy announcement. I wrote an article about this 2 years ago. It's because OPMs then went to the other end of the spectrum and said, we're going to do all aspects of the value chain. But I think where we're seeing with like the OPEs, there was a piece inside higher ed yesterday as well, thinking of like the noodles out there in the world. What are the pieces that I am going to strategically source? And what am I going to keep in-house and really invest in to create my unique value? So it's not like every university looks and feels the same, but also create value. So prediction number one, we're going to see an increased reliance on partnership strategies as a method of strategic competitive advantage, specifically in the higher ed sector. The second, and we started talking about like the ecosystem and bringing everyone together, we need to really figure out how employers and universities work together, or universities aren't going to exist anymore. And I'm talking more than like, I talked to a couple of, university recruiters and looked at some Lightcast data, and now this is what I do, but true integration between the two. And this comes from my custom executive education background on the non-degree side of the house, but we built out programs that were so specific to that institution, their skills gaps and the things they need. And it's starting to happen. But I think we're going to see this really different looking and feeling world 5-10 years from now. And I'm going to steal this line from my former manager and still good friend and mentor, Brandon Bastide. The places of work are going to look more like universities and places of learning. And the places of learning are going to look and feel a lot more like places of work. I think we're going to see that really enhanced integration, whether it's a higher trained employee program, education as a benefit, but not like, oh, cool, we're going to, pay your tuition assistance. But no, what is that thing I need to do to get to the next level of my career? And there's some interesting ed techs playing in the like career mapping and mobility space and skills first and AI. Right now, I think we're in this land of like almost pilot hell is what I've called it. But in the next 5 to 10 years, that's going to become the new norm. So I'm really excited to see how all of those innovations play out. And marrying the two ideas together again, if a school wants to really be competitive in the workforce landscape, they're going to need a partner to do it, because right now they're not staffed and equipped in a way to make that transition whole scale. There's things they can do internally, especially career, can we just all take a moment and like thank career services leaders, and they're doing God's work and amazing, amazing things happening in the career services space. But that alone is not going to be enough. So where does that partnership, strategic sourcing relationship happen there to then help universities really enter into this new world of work and new world of learning? So those are my two. It's actually one prediction because they're very intertwined, but that's my reading of the tea leaves at least.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I definitely am kind of hearing, even in my kind of corner of the higher ed world, like, that drum beating kind of like I can hear it a little bit faintly, and it's coming in stronger and stronger over time of like the workforce integrations into higher education, where it's like, I feel like I was, it wasn't really like relevant or impactful on my role, but just seeing like I've been talking to a lot of people about it on this podcast and just seeing, just more kind of chatter and folks working. And I think just that there's going to be, like you're saying, like the next couple of years, some big shifts there, because I think that is something that's going to be kind of a life preserver for higher ed, I guess, like as we're sort of probably like emerging from this, we're keeping the trend going this year of like an institution closing on average every week. It's like, this is going to be that sort of like downward thing. And we're kind of like, however long the sort of, bottom of the curve is going to go as we emerge from it. I think, these strategic partnerships and very intentional kind of staffing and it's just like, I think it is a fair question to ask of like, do we need to staff up like we were prior to the pandemic? And, asking that question and really having a honest conversation around it can mean that you're just like, leveraging partnerships in a very thoughtful way to fully optimize and reach the full potential of different tools. And then just like, have people work in different ways or different roles, or I don't know. So I think that's even kind of like the first step is sort of like awareness or sort of acknowledgement, and kind of, where we go from here, maybe a little bit blurry, but I think your predictions are sound. I agree with them. And I think they are very just, keen observations and good ways to sort of synthesize and bring everything together we're talking about in our conversation today. So I really appreciate you kind of getting my brain going here this morning. And I guess just like you said, like to put this in time and space, like this is late July 2024. Who knows what even happens in the next couple of months of this year? But, this conversation will come out and hopefully folks will join us at EdTechWeek in October in New York City and certainly connect with you. We'll always connect with you on LinkedIn, the description for the episode as well. But yeah, just thank you so much for your time, all that you shared and all the awesome stuff that you do.
Thank you, Dustin. Looking forward to finally meeting in person in New York City. I'm sure I owe you a beer or something, so more soon.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that. The Hired Geek Podcast is a part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances you'll like all the other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing constantly, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks all designed to empower you to be a better hired professional. Our shows help you find your next big idea and feature a selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from people like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Day Kibbolds, and Eddie Francis, as well as so many other of your favorite leaders in higher education. Enrollify is made possible by the support of Element 451, a leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.